He was chief architect of the modern world. He discovered more of the essential core of human knowledge than anyone before or after. Just let the staggering weight of that quote by historian James Gleick sink in for a second. We are talking about a single mind that literally rewired how humanity understands its place in the cosmos.
Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to wrap your head around how one person's work could essentially map the universe, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the brilliance behind Isaac Newton's discoveries. We're going to take the massive, almost incomprehensible volume of his life's work and break it down into structured insights we can all grasp.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. First up, architect of the modern world. Then, the 2 golden years, followed by the first great unification. After that, we'll look beyond gravity to the polymath, uncover the hidden alchemist, and finally wrap up with sparking the Enlightenment. All right, section 1, architect of the modern world, from humble beginnings. Now, to really appreciate the sheer scale of Newton's impact, you have to consider this wild physical contrast. On one hand, you have Isaac Newton, the premature baby, born in a tiny hamlet in 1642. He was so incredibly small that his own mother famously said he could have fit inside a single quart mug. I mean, think about that. Yet, on the other hand, you have the cosmic architect he eventually became. This tiny, fragile infant grew into the absolute giant of the scientific revolution, a guy whose math literally mapped out the behavior of the entire universe. It's an unbelievable testament to human potential. Section 2, the 2 golden years, a burst of genius.
So, Newton's time as an undergrad? Honestly, pretty undistinguished. But everything changes in 1665, right after he gets his bachelor's degree. He heads back home to Woolsthorpe, and in this brief, totally solitary window, his private studies just explode. Just think about the progression. In 1665, he starts developing calculus. By 1666, he's doing groundbreaking work in optics, and by 1667, he's already formulating the early concepts for the law of gravitation. It's just one solitary guy sitting at home, rapidly giving birth to 3 entirely distinct scientific revolutions in math, light, and gravity. And he did it in just 2 years.
The physicist Lewis Trenchard Moore hit the nail on the head when he said, "There are no other examples of achievement in the history of science to compare with that of Newton during those 2 golden years." It's true. That level of concentrated intellectual productivity, it literally remains unmatched in all of human history. Moving right along to section 3, the first great unification, bridging heaven and earth. Now, those early ideas took time to bake. Fast forward to 1687. With a little push and some much-needed financial backing from Edmund Halley, Newton drops his masterpiece, the Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica. This single book laid down the 3 universal laws of motion. It basically invented classical mechanics, describing exactly how objects, forces, and motion interact. And here's why this matters to us right now. The principles laid out in this text are still the foundational blueprint for practically all the non-relativistic tech we use today. And this brings us to his ultimate breakthrough. See, before Newton, people just assumed the heavens up there operated by a completely different set of divine, mystical rules than things down here on Earth. But Newton used his mathematical description of gravity to prove that actually, no, the exact same physical laws govern both. It's the same rules. The forces causing the tides in our oceans or charting the path of a comet are the exact same forces keeping the planets orbiting the sun. So the big takeaway here is that Newton didn't just figure out why apples fall, he unified the cosmos. This first great unification completely wiped out any lingering doubts about a heliocentric, sun-centered solar system. He proved, mathematically, that Earth and the heavens are all just part of one massive, cohesive mechanical system. Which leads us to section 4, beyond gravity, the polymath. Now, if Newton had never even thought about gravity, he'd still be a complete legend. The sheer volume of his secondary discoveries is mind-blowing. He built the very first reflecting telescope. He proved through prism arrays that white light is actually a whole spectrum of immutable colors. He came up with an empirical law of cooling, which is basically the foundation of heat transfer. He calculated the first theoretical speed of sound. He even introduced the concept of a Newtonian fluid, figuring out the linear relation between viscous resistance and velocity gradient. Optics, thermodynamics, acoustics, fluid dynamics, he mastered the whole shebang. But what's really cool is he didn't just give us the facts. He gave us a much better way to actually find facts. He famously stated,
I frame no hypotheses, meaning if it's not deduced from observable phenomena, it's just a guess. In doing this, he heavily refined the modern scientific method. He was basically saying, look, science has to rely strictly on observable facts and math. No more metaphysical guesses or mystical occult qualities. He brought pure, hard logic to the table.
But, and this is a big but, Section 5, the hidden alchemist, the mysterious mind. For a guy who championed such strict rational physics, there is a deeply unorthodox side to him. It begs a really fascinating question. What was the chief architect of the modern rational world actively hiding from his peers?
Well, the answer spans an astonishing 30 years of his life. For 3 whole decades, Newton secretly poured vast amounts of his time and genius into a completely different, highly secretive pursuit.
Yeah, the man who quantified gravitational attraction was also deep into esoteric alchemy, or chemistry, as they called it back then, along with some highly unorthodox biblical chronology. He was a devout Christian, sure, but he privately rejected the core doctrine of the Trinity. That was a stance that would have been an absolute scandal if it got out. So he kept this mystical, mysterious side of his life locked away. Almost all of this work stayed completely unpublished until long, long after he died.
Which brings us to our final section, Sparking the Enlightenment, a Rational World.
Despite his private, mystical hobbies, it was his public, mathematical framework that rippled outward and changed the world. And not just science, but human society itself. Thinkers of the Enlightenment looked at Newton's physics and thought, hey, if the universe is governed by rational, natural laws, shouldn't society be governed the same way? John Locke and Voltaire took these concepts and applied them to politics and human rights. Adam Smith applied them to economics and self-interest. Early sociologists used his models to study human progress. Basically, Newton's mechanics became the absolute blueprint for modern political and economic thought.
Isaac Newton looked at a confusing, chaotic world and found the elegant, hidden math holding the whole thing together. He fundamentally altered the trajectory of human history. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If one mind, working with nothing but glass prisms and parchment, can uncover the core mechanics of the universe, what unseen laws of nature are still out there, just waiting for our generation to discover? Keep learning, keep questioning, and thanks for joining me on this explainer.